So this is Ishita, is that how you say your name?
Yep, Ishita.
Ishita. Okay,
There
cool.
you go.
And this is the Motivated by Mortality podcast. So I found Ishita where everyone finds everyone on Instagram nowadays. I don't know how I found you. Someone posted you in their story, and then I saw a video of you dancing, and I was like, yo, this is a cool ass dancer. And then I went on your page, and you have your own dance company. I was like, yo, she needs to be on my fucking podcast.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And then I DM'd her, and she responded. I was like, wow, she's gonna be on the podcast. All right. So introduce who you are, what you're doing right now, and then we're gonna get into some questions.
Cool, yeah. My name's Ishita. The American way to say it is Ishita, but I'm trying to say it the correct way nowadays because,
interesting.
like, why not? It's Ishita. That's the Bengali way to say it. But I am an urban Indian choreographer. So urban Indian is a style that I created that stems from my very long history in Bharatanatyam and hip hop. And so I kind of took those things and I started doing my own thing based in using these very cultural and very highly technical forms of dance and kind of creating something that speaks to my experiences and my views as an American Bengali millennial, Indian person,
Right.
female, like all these different things. So kind of creating my own outlet. And so from that, I started my own dance company called IMGE, IMGE, but you just say IMGE. And yeah, so we've been a group for about 2 years now, a company, and we've been rising really fast and basically creating larger works now to tell new narratives of stories that we feel are important sharing.
Amazing. So I have a lot of questions about the company, but first I want to get into, you described a bunch of identities to categorize yourself. What was the motivation? You're 23 now, so you're fairly young, to take all of those identities that you feel a certain relationship to and then combine them into this creative project you're doing. Like, where did the inspiration to not go be a doctor, not get a corporate job, turn into this creative outlet of you expressing your identities?
Well, fun fact is that I actually got into medical school and I was about to
So you were on a
that.
pre-med track in undergrad.
Yeah, and I actually got in. I did I took the MCAT. I had an acceptance letter.
So you stopped being a doctor to do this.
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's not.
Were your parents
Whatever.
mad?
Yeah, they were really upset for a good year. Barely talked to each other. It was really rough. Rough is a word. But artistically, for a long time, I've been very fortunate in my life to really have extremely high access to the arts. My
Right.
uncle was a choreographer, and he's famous in Kolkata, and so I kind of had the top training and influence from a young age. So he pushed me to go into strict, high quality Bharatanatyam. And I had been doing that since I was 5, after doing ballet first when I was 3, and I hated that.
Wow.
So it was a long time, and in there I had different kind of identity crises in Bharatanatyam because a lot of the stories that we tell and a lot of the things that we dance about are very based on Hindu mythology,
Right.
And a lot of the concepts are kind of outdated to me, and I was... especially when it came to misogyny, and I just never felt like I had room to be myself. Mm-hmm. And then when I moved to hip hop, I had now more freedom to
And what
move
age
in
was
different
that
ways.
around?
So that was I was going to high school, college, so I would have been 18 at the time. So I auditioned after a very complicated relationship with Bharatanatyam and Indian classical fusion, which were the main styles I was doing at that time.
Right.
I was really frustrated, and so I wanted something new. So I just kind of went to hip hop, which was a space where, after at that point, I had done all of the solo competitions. I was winning awards. I was in all these music videos and all this stuff through my uncle and through Bharatanatyam, and I was just never happy. So from YouTube first finding out what hip hop dance even was, around 16 at Sweet 16 parties and stuff like that, It's a good time.
That's when you got introduced
That's when I started kind of freestyling, and people were like, "Do you do hip hop?" And I was like, "No, but maybe I should."
Right.
So from there I just auditioned for a hip hop company with my friend, and I got in, and then it became a huge part of my life for another 4 years.
Wow.
So from there, kind of going to hip hop was really refreshing because there was this place that didn't care about who I was and like all this like
Didn't try
stature.
to categorize you.
Yeah, and like
Right.
they didn't give a shit that like, oh, you have a famous uncle, like whoa, like you're like so like awarded and all the stuff that you're
Right.
doing. They were like, oh, at the end of the day, can you do what we need you
Right.
to do?
Can you perform?
Yeah, and like do hip hop. Like this is a different style. We don't care like what you've done before. Like
Right.
this is a new place. So kind of starting from scratch was like really refreshing. But then at the same time in hip hop, there isn't always a strong storytelling aspect.
Right.
Like a lot of the stuff is like girls and like money and like whatever. And like I didn't really care about that stuff either, right?
Right.
So like for a long time in my life, I felt like I was always balancing these multiple identities. Like I felt like I am one person, but why do I have to like split it into different
things.
people and go about my life? And then at the same time as all of this stuff in just art, I was also a scientist. And I was also being a doctor. So when I was like in this academic life, I couldn't talk about dance, and that was like a different identity that I wasn't allowed to have either, right?
Fucking Hannah Montana.
Like the worst type.
The brown Hannah Montana.
Didn't like either of the people that I was being. But I mean, that's also a more common, I think, diaspora for like South Asians in general,
Yes.
like living these like kind of different expectations. And so basically, I was sick of being different people. That's what it came down to. I wanted to be myself. I wanted to be one person. And I think that a lot of the Desi kind of experience right now is having to balance multiple identities. So kind of my conversation is like, why can't we just be one person? Why can't we have one identity?
That's definitely an interesting thing because I've experienced that as well, just coming from where I come from and dealing with Desi parents. I want to talk more about that. How did you bridge the gap between not going to med school and doing your own thing? So I understand the motivation for wanting your identities to be one. How did you communicate that with your loved ones?
I think it was something that was like I always knew that that's what I wanted to do, even from before I got into like the pre-med program that I was in, and I wasn't able to communicate it. And for the 3.5 years that I was in school, because I graduated early too because I'm brown.
Wow. You got a superstar here.
I was like a chemistry major too.
God.
Yeah,
Wow.
I could keep going.
No, I'm actually so happy I found you. There's not a lot of people I know that are brown that are in that path, AP, all that bullshit, and then they choose the other shit that they love. That's interesting.
Yeah, and it was, like when I got to the end of high school, I was like, I don't have any one thing that I'm really passionate about.
Right.
I had like by high school, I had this medical program in front of me, and then I got into like Rutgers Pharm, so I had pharmacy in front of me, and then I had like a normal chem degree, and then my parents were like, what's the point of applying as a dance major? You're an Indian dancer, there's nothing there for you.
So you wanted to be a dance major in college?
I didn't necessarily, because there wasn't opportunities that were even suited for a dancer like me.
What do you mean by that?
Because most opportunities for dance majors are like contemporary or ballet in the United States of the Americas.
Right.
And so there, even if I, let's say, wanted to, there wasn't necessarily a platform for me to even want to do that.
Right. So it didn't make sense.
Yeah. So it wasn't really an option regardless. And so, with all my parents' like statistical and logical mathematical processes of elimination and determination, we obviously came down to medical school. But it was nothing that I was like, I really want to do it. Like my heart is in it. So
Right.
I always was kind of like balancing this like unhappiness. And so kind of the contract that I signed with my parents was, I'm going to do this. But this medical program in particular that I did wasn't binding at first. So I was like, we're going to take it year by year, see how I feel. And if like I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it.
And this was during undergrad?
This is during undergrad. Okay. So basically I had this like, it was like a 4 and 4 program. So I got into like Monmouth for chemistry. And then if I got like a minimum score on the MCAT and I got like minimum GPA and requirements,
you keep advancing, right?
Then I automatically get into Drexel College of Med.
Wow.
And so I was kind of like, just like walking along this path, right? And I was never happy. And there were multiple times where I tried to express to my parents, like, I'm not happy. And there were multiple times where they were like, but just keep going. Like this is just a phase. Like, and they kind of, after multiple times of me expressing unhappiness, kind of kept being like, she'll get over it. Like, she'll keep going. It's going to be fine. Which is not something that I'm mad about them for. I think that, like, yeah, everything I say is not to necessarily put them in the ground. I'm actually happy that they were so tough on me because I don't think I would have been as confident and as strong as I am today had they not been the toughest to me, right? And that's a controversial topic, but basically had been walking through this undergrad stuff, and I graduated early intentionally because the part of this contract that I signed with my parents was that if I graduate early, then I'll have 6 months before medical school to do whatever I want.
You didn't literally sign a contract, did you?
No, this is like a metaphorical contract with my parents.
All right.
But you wouldn't be that surprised if I did.
I wouldn't have been that surprised.
So no, I didn't actually sign a real contract, but the agreement was that if I graduated early, I'd be able to do whatever I wanted for like 6 months. So I wanted to go to India and I wanted to dance full time for like 6 months. I just wanted to go and I wanted to dance.
Okay.
So I went to India. I graduated early and I went to India. I'd gotten all my acceptances. I was like, okay, this is my time to live my life.
Yeah.
Go dance full time. So I went. I was like stayed with my uncle and I performed a shit ton and I was miserable because when I went there, then it was like this intensified experience of everyone in India was like, oh, she's the dancer doctor.
Yeah.
She's the American princess, like fairy godmother, kind of like my identity was like being advertised, like this like fake identity that I was living. And
absolutely,
kind of that drove me over the edge. And I burst. I literally like had this like mental breakdown. And I called my parents from the middle of Mumbai and I was like, I'm not doing it anymore.
All right. And then you just came back home.
And they were like, get home immediately. You've gone insane. And then
so just to recap, 3.5 years of med school. The contract is you get to have 6 months of freedom to do whatever you want. As long as you graduate early, you get all your acceptances. You accomplished all that. Get the 6 months. You get your freedom. You go to Mumbai. You realize you hate it because everyone is identifying yourself without you being introspective to identify yourself. You come back to America. Now what happens?
And my parents were hoping, again, that was a phase, that I
Right.
just went to India and that was going to, like, I'd come home and it'd be normal again. And I came home and I was like, no, I really, like, I feel like I've exploded. Like, I can't do this.
Right.
And they freaked out. They were like, okay, well, if you're not going to do this, you need to figure out something else. Go to IT. Go, we have to get you back into a master's program. We got to do something. Like, we have to put you back in school. So basically, they were like, okay, if you choose to be a full-time dancer right now, we will kick you out of the house. Like, there is no reality in which that's happening. And I was like, I get that. You know what? I get that. Because they had basically, long story short, is I had grown up with a choreographer who was full-time in the family, which is already rare for a brown family.
Yes.
So my family's already quite artistic.
Yes.
We have high exposure to the arts. My dad is he's like this like Wall Street hedge fund broker and also a weekend musician who like works as a musician on the weekends.
Right.
And we're all like, everyone in the family is quite artistic, but they had supported my uncle when he was 21 and homeless and trying to make a living as a dancer, and they were the ones who kind of put him on their backs.
Right.
And going
Was that also in America?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
so they were in America at the time. He was based in India, but he was like trying to like work in Canada and he was trying to work in the US.
Right.
And it was really hard. And they saw firsthand how difficult it is
Yes.
to
Pursue art as
to
a
pursue,
living.
especially like dance is the cheapest art form in all of the art forms. It is the one that people shit on and least respect out of
Right.
every single art form out there. We are the least like paid. We are the least respected.
Right.
And we do oftentimes the most work.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they saw that firsthand and they just didn't want to see, especially like my uncle was a man, like seeing their daughter go through something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they did it out of protection because they knew what it was like firsthand. It wasn't even like they had no idea what they were talking about. And that's also, so they were like, okay, there's no reality in which you want to be you can be a dancer. And at the same time, I was like, I knew that there was something more that I wanted to do, that it wasn't just like being a dancer. I really wanted to be a choreographer. And I
Right.
didn't know that yet.
So even though those 6 months in Mumbai sucked for you, you still love dance.
I love dance, but I at this point still hadn't found an outlet for me.
Right,
So
to creatively
image
express
didn't
that.
exist.
Right.
Urban Indian didn't necessarily exist in its fullest form.
Right.
So when I quit all of that stuff and I came back to America and my parents were like, you have to figure something out. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back into school. I'm gonna do my master's in business because
Okay.
business is probably gonna be helpful no matter what I do. If I open a dance business, that's gonna be helpful too. So why
Right.
not get something that'll also educationally
Enhance
help me
that.
in like what my passion is. And if I'm gonna walk out of all this, I'm gonna put my all into it. I'm gonna make something out of this. Like I have to succeed.
So
now.
so when you said you're getting a master's in business, that means you objectively told your parents, I'm not going the medical route.
Yeah.
But they did not let you go the dance person route because of everything you described about not
Yep.
wanting to see you struggle. So you were stuck in this middle at this point.
Yeah. And so they kind of were like somewhat pacified that, okay, at least she's going back to school.
Yeah.
So that allowed me to stay at home.
Yeah, they can tell their friends her daughter's getting a master's.
Yeah, but it was this huge thing that they were like embarrassed what to tell their friends, and they were embarrassed to tell other people in the family because we had all these doctors in the family, and like they're very social and very outwards people already as like adults, and yeah, they just didn't know what to do. Like I was a case that they had no manual for.
Right.
They had no advice from their friends who had gone through similar experiences. And so that was like another year of me just being in school. And then I was like a barista at a coffee shop, and I was trying to make money. And then I started IMGE at that time. So that same summer, like a month after I
Is
came
this
back.
2018 summer?
2017.
So about 2 years ago around this time, you started IMGE. All right,
Yeah.
so let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
What is IMGE?
So IMGE is an urban Indian dance company that I started. It's the premier urban Indian dance company. It doesn't exist anywhere because I created Urban Indian. Urban Indian in the sense that it's a dance form that pulls from the languages of Indian classical dance and folk, as well as urban dance styles.
Urban American or just modern?
No, like urban hip hop.
Okay.
So that's another conversation of there's hip hop is not the same thing as urban, but they're
Right.
similar.
Right.
Urban is more of like an offshoot, so I'm technically an urban dancer.
Okay.
And yeah, pulls from those languages and is now kind of this new dance form that's aimed towards telling stories.
Right.
And so I got together some of my friends that I had in the East Coast dance community, speaking the hip hop dance community. I didn't really have South Asian contacts or dancers who would have been willing or like
To go on this venture with you.
Yeah, and so I just kind of contacted my friends that I had already that I'd really spent my entire undergrad experience with in that whole urban hip hop space where I
Right.
was like really finding myself at that time. And they've stuck ever since. And I was from that little seed of I created a piece for like a showcase locally, and it was received really well. And yeah, but it ended up starting out from me just being like, I am gonna make what I want.
Right.
I don't really care who says anything. I don't really care how it's perceived. But like finally, I just want to get this stuff off my chest
Yes.
of like my experiences.
What does the company do? How do you make money?
Yeah, so we have gigs and showcases and performances. So that's our main revenue right now.
So when you say we, you mean you and your team of dancers?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the artistic director. I'm like the choreographer. I'm the main person running everything, but
Right.
we'll get booked for shows, and that's how we make our money. So we're like not a dance school. I don't teach
You're
very
not teaching
often.
dance, right.
I'm not really like, yeah, I'm not doing that route. But what our goal is now is to get higher profile shows, because
Yeah.
what I want to do is really to be able to do longer, like hour and a half shows, like
Got it.
off Broadway type style, and like be able to tour with that type of material.
It's amazing.
So not really like commercial work
Right.
necessarily. Like I'm over the like minute Instagram videos like that. That's what you see, but that's not really
Right.
even like a tip of the iceberg of like what we're doing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is amazing. I'm super happy I found you. I want to talk a little bit about specifically Desi parents, I'm going to go over a little bit about my quick relationship with them.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I was a finance major, business analytics information. It was at Rutgers. That was my junior year. So this past year, 2018 going into 2019. And I have been publicly speaking since I was 13. My parents put me in speech and debate because my sister did debate in high school. She was the second speaker in the country her senior year, so she got invited to Obama's White House.
Oh, shit.
And my parents were like, oh shit, like we just got our fucking immigrant kid to see the president. Like you should do this debate shit. So I was like, all right. And I already like to argue, so it was like a natural mix. So ever since I was 13, I was always debating, trying to get someone's attention to vote for me, because in debate you have judges, they have to vote for you. And in October 2018, I went to my first business analytics and information technology exam. Now this is an entire coding major. It's Python, not like super CS, but it's heavy analytical thinking in terms of the ideas of information technology and coding. And I knew that's not who I am. That's not saying I can't do that, but that is saying like not only don't I want to do that, but since 13 I've been in the art of communication and conversation and public speaking. That's how like I've made my living over the past couple of years. So I get the exam and I look at this shit and I'm just like, this is not who I am. Like this is just not who I am. So at 20 minutes into the exam, at the final question, I just write, thank you for telling me this is not who I am. And I give it to the professor. And I drop that major that day. And I don't know what I'm going to do in my life. I don't know what is going to happen. But that day I'm just like, I have to do this. And I call my parents up and I'm like, I have to do this. And my mom is super supportive. So she's like, yeah, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. My dad is just like, I don't think that's the right decision, man. Like I don't know. Like, we're paying a lot of money for college, and I was obviously chipping in a lot of money for college as well, so I had some say into it. But I was just like, I'll figure it out. And literally 3 weeks later, like it's ridiculous. I got an opportunity to start this consulting business with someone, and like things started clicking, and then I started getting ideas, and I started going on the introspective journey to find who I was. And I came to the conclusion, which is you have to ask yourself what lights your soul on fire. And to me, that question was public speaking. And I had too many people say that I was too good at it, not to like be cocky or whatever, but just too many people telling me like, this is something that I see you're passionate about. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm passionate about this shit. I need to go all in.
That's a good feeling.
Right.
To know when you finally know.
It's insane. And then ever since that moment, I just started going tunnel vision. It's like there's two questions you have to ask yourself in life. What do you want and how the fuck are you going to get it? And I knew I wanted to be a public speaker across the fucking world and just travel and give these conversations. And I want to build a communications consulting firm that is built upon some of my philosophical principles about public speaking. So I was like, all right, I got the idea. I got the path. Then it came down to like, how the fuck do I do this? Like, this is going to be very hard. And this podcast is sort of part of building that. So for me, the reason I'm so happy I found you, sorry for that long soliloquy,
I like learning about that.
It seems similar in a way, which is that you started going down this path. You ended up finishing your major. I didn't really do that. I dropped that shit.
Better to figure out earlier.
Yeah. Well, and you figured it out. And then you were just like, I'm going to hold my ground and I'm not going to give up on these dreams, because at 40, at 50, you would regret that shit. You would be sad about it, no matter how much money no matter how stable your life would be. And that to me is the motivator for what I've been doing right now. So Desi parents, I want to talk about this. Why do you think these parents are so obsessed with status, so obsessed with talking to their friends? And not to blame them, because I know they come from a different time period as us, but what is the obsession that they have that ultimately implicates their children from being happy and doing what they want to do?
I think that most Desi parents, aside from like status, which is kind of, I mean, yeah, you want to have a good story for your friends. I mean, like I get that from just, a human perspective.
Right.
But for my parents in particular, I think they were worried just about the logistics and like the
survivability of it.
So like they're really, the doctors in my family didn't become doctors because their heart was in it. They did it to get the fuck out of those villages in India.
Right.
So they rose to the top in order to support their family, and that was like a survival instinct.
Exactly.
And so they grew up with a different mentality, and that's what they knew.
Right.
And so even in this world where we don't have those same survival needs because we're quite cushioned and we're quite okay, that's how they figured out their futures. So how do they know how to lead people who have a different environment entirely?
Right.
So for my parents, kind of after that whole school change, and I did the master's and I enrolled, I enrolled into like the MBS program. it was like another year where they didn't really, talk to me and we didn't get along. But
Now, were they hostile to you, or they just
they were more like they had no idea what to say. They just didn't even know who I was anymore.
So you would be waking up every day and it would just be like, hi, bye, and that's it.
Like we didn't even really have conversations. They just, they just didn't know what to do with me.
Right.
And I didn't know what to say to them because I had for a long time just given up on talking to them because I had been trying for 4 years of slowly trying to be like, I'm unhappy, and them not recognizing.
And pushing it away.
But a year later, I had an opportunity to create a short dance play for a for a theater festival in New Jersey, and I made a 30-minute production. That was my first opportunity of creating something that was of substance and of kind of production value, and not just like a dance, like a 4-minute dance or something. And it was about, it was called Rastar Gatha, and that's Bengali for street talk. Right. So it was about these different experiences that I had encountered throughout my life of different South Asian minorities who had difficult experiences. And just like, times where I had met these people. So they were from my perspective, these stories, but about these problems that I've seen. Right. And so it was kind of like an intellectual conversation with the audience, and we ended up getting like an entire standing ovation for that show.
Wow. And this was around 2017 when you were starting out?
So that was 2018. So a year after I had all of that stuff had blown up. So a year later, my parents went and they saw that show, and my mom was like in tears after, and she came up to me and she was like, I'm happy I get it now.
Right.
I get why you've done what you've done. This is something you couldn't have done if you were in medical school. And so kind of, to go back to why parents are like that, I think they just have to see it to believe it. Yeah. It's hard to believe in just like the dream or like the fantasy, which I think like other American parents are more okay with.
But which there's good warrant for, because a lot of times kids dream and they don't do shit about it, and then you end up living with your parents till 40.
And so there's a lot of instances where that's statistically proven not to be the wisest, logistically like sound thing to do, right? And so they just didn't see the facts. They didn't see the data of like where my brain was at and what are the repercussions of my decisions. Right. They didn't really see that. And once, they saw not only my work, but also how people were responding to it, because that was like a really powerful response from the entire audience. Then they were like, okay, so it's not just like us thinking that you're a good dancer. Now that there's some substance and there's more value, and there's, we see a response.
Right.
And that's like, those are statistics to look at, right? And so they have to kind of see it to believe it.
That is very similar to my sister was traveling around the country her senior year when she was like doing a lot of debate tournaments, and my parents saw her at a New York City national speech for the first time, and my mom started crying because my mom didn't know while my sister was going to Texas for a debate, but she was happy she was getting out of the house and she didn't have to pay for anything because the school was paying for it and all that stuff. But when she first saw her debate and first saw her impact an audience with her words, like everything changed. So I think that's a good point that you bring up. Do you think that parents, if they see the results of their kids' passions, are a little bit more sympathetic towards recognizing that every parent, I think universally, just wants their kids to be happy, right? Maybe that's not true in every situation, but majority of parents, like their life goal is just to see their kids grow up to be happy. But if they're growing up to be something that they don't want to do, like I know kids who are in medical school right now, engineering, who don't want to fucking do that shit.
Man.
Are miserable.
I'm seeing that too.
But they're doing it so their mom could, be proud of them. Do you think if they see some hint of a passion, there's a better chance for that to not be imposed?
I think it's not even hint of a passion. I think that they need, like, if you are unhappy in medical school and you know what the other thing is that you want to do, or you have a way of finding what that is, if you're like, I need to take a break and I need to go travel and I need to figure it out, I think at the end of the day it comes from within. Like, no matter how much all this pressure and shit is, like, you have the power in your life to make the decisions that you want, whether or not it's the easy thing to do. So I made the not easy route. The shit that I did in my life was not the easy way out.
I want to talk about the last thing you just said about the hard way out, right? So I think everyone is on a hard path ultimately. Like everyone's, even if you know you're going to go to med school, engineering, 4 years, this internship job, it's going to be even if it's planned out, it's still hard to get through all of it. To me, I think what's hard, right, is embracing the unknown. And like doing something where you just don't know what the future is going to look like. You have a little mental guideline, but it's not secure. Even if it's secure, it's still hard, right, to get through everything and go through it. But it's not hard in the sense of like you don't know what the fuck's going to happen. What is your perspective on people having the ability to embrace the unknown, and what psychological tips do you have for those who are watching, given your experience of embracing fear and like not caring about what would happen if you failed?
I mean, I think that a part of the reason of why I was able to do everything that I did was I kind of reached a breaking point. If I was walking down that whole secure path, but when I couldn't take it anymore, like maybe I could have realized that earlier. Like, I don't know. But at the end of the day, because I ended up becoming so fed up with everything, that's what gave me the confidence of there is no way I can live this life anymore, and I have to do something different. Like something has to change, otherwise I'm like gonna commit suicide in like med school. Like this is not gonna end well for anybody, right?
How ironic would it be?
Right, and so like so basically I came to the point, like the question I asked myself was like, what's the point of living if I'm gonna keep doing this? Literally, what's the point of being alive?
What is the nature of your existence?
Yeah, why not even try to find some way of being happy? Because there wasn't even this point of like I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I definitely did not know that, right? I could, because I also couldn't communicate that with my parents at that time.
And most kids don't at 21. It's hard.
It's hard. And so
so how did you push back when you decided to embrace the unknown and realize like shit could go super south? How did you be okay with that?
I think because I felt like if I stuck in the route that I was going in, it would have been even worse.
Right.
Again, going back to that point of like I would have gone insane. Like
so for you, it was simple. It was either like shit can possibly go south, or shit is already going south. I need to give it a chance to go north.
Yeah, that's exactly what it came to me, and I kind of. That's why it's like it's so hard to give advice on that, because like I don't necessarily wish for someone else to go down the exact point that I went to. But at the end of the day, for me, I feel like reaching that point of like kind of insanity for me was what ended up motivating me to get my head straight.
Right.
That like, you know what, I have to get my head straight. I'm like gonna treat this, like I'm gonna be smart about this now. I'm gonna go be like learn how to be a businessman, and I'm gonna treat dance as a business, and I'm gonna make something out of this, and it's gonna be okay. And like so now when anyone talks to me, like I know like I can hold my ground. I don't really give a shit about what anyone says anymore. But that's because I kind of like went to that point of insanity.
Yes.
And so if my parents weren't that crazy to me, like growing up and like pushing me all the way that I did to be so like frustrated,
right?
I don't know if I would have been as confident as I am now, right? So if like they were easier on me, if I didn't do medical school, honestly, like if things didn't line up exactly the way that they did in my life, I don't know that I would have been as confident as I am now. So I guess, you know, for other people who are trying to figure things out, I feel like trust your internal compass to know at least not necessarily like what exactly you want to do or where exactly you want to go, but if things are going north or going south right now. Like this general like, am I doing okay or am I doing bad? And if I'm doing bad, what's the future of that possibly going to look like in where you are in life right now?
Right. And if that future results in a $300,000 salary, will that resolve?
Will that resolve the problems?
Right.
And so, you know, that is different for everyone, right? Because like maybe that salary will solve it.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not the type of person to be like, follow your dreams.
Right.
Because I think that you need to be able to sell your dream to yourself.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm not going to be over here not knowing who you are and not knowing what your drive is to be like, just follow your dream. No, I think you have to figure that out for yourself. It's a subjective question. I don't think it's as black as white, you know, is that question states, because you need to support yourself. You need to feed yourself at the end of the day. Like it's not all about passion anymore.
Right.
But if you really have the passion for something, then you know what you need to do.
Right.
And you have to find it in yourself to like figure it out. If you know like what you're doing right now is not going to lead to your happiness, or you know things are really like,
to act on that,
then you have to do something.
Right.
Whatever it is, whether it's going for your dream, whether it's going somewhere in between so you can do both things.
Right.
Whatever that means to you, wherever you're walking in life, there's like, you always have the time to stop and ask yourself the question of like, am I like walking towards something I like or like not?
Right. We're at this point of the podcast where I want to know the answer to the question that every guest answers. Do you know what the question is? Do you want to take a guess on what the question? What is it?
Something like, what's your like motivation or something?
Kind of. You got one of the words right. What is motivated by mortality mean to you?
Oh, okay.
So you don't really know much. I didn't tell you much about the meaning. What do you think?
I think that it's, to me, like mortality is really emphasizing the fact that we have one life to live. And so what are you going to do with that? And what are you going to make out of it?
Right.
So I guess motivated by mortality is like, if I have this one life to live and I only have this amount of time to make an impact on the world
Right.
and do something with my life, what's going to be the drive for that?
Is death a motivator for you?
No.
Why?
I don't know. I guess I'm not so concerned.
What is your
about it.
relationship to death? Do you think about it? Does it pontificate at you? Did you have experiences with it? How do you understand the concept of not being here anymore?
I think I'm not necessarily scared of death, right? Of like the act of it itself.
Right.
Like if it happens, like life is a cycle, right? But I think that what scares me is usually just like lack of time I think like every birthday that I have, I'm not excited about my birthday because I'm like, I
Really?
didn't accomplish enough this year. Like I wanted to do more this year and I didn't get enough done. And that's like a reoccurring.
Is getting older scaring you?
Yeah, totally. I think also because we're in this like millennial thing where like there's like 15-year-olds becoming like famous on YouTube and shit, and especially for the arts, like especially for dancers, like there's like 7-year-olds like
Going viral
getting like
on
millions
Facebook.
of views,
There's like
and
50
like
million
what the fuck am I
fucking
doing? Like you have to read.
No, you're right.
So I think it's more like death is like, I guess this finite. It gives you this finite amount of time that
Right.
you're like, okay, I have this much amount of time that I have to like make something out of, that I have to say.
So you think
something.
it provides a little bit of urgency for you to do it?
Yeah.
Would you want to live forever if you had the chance?
No.
Why?
I think that life is a cycle, right? And I think that cycle shouldn't be broken. I think things are meant to happen as they happen.
Right.
Yeah, I'm the believer of everything happens for a reason. And that's like I've always gone back to that. That's like been a mantra that's like really helped me get
consistent for
through.
you.
Yeah, so even like the shitty things like the extreme shitty things that have happened in my life, something came out of it.
Right.
Even if I saw it 3 years later, however long that took. I think everything happens for a reason. And so I don't really wish necessarily that like life didn't work the way that it does.
Right.
Life does work the way that it does. But I think that what you can do is be able to make an impact so that people in later lives can learn from it.
Right.
And that's, I think, something that I want to do, to be able to have an impact so that future generations can
So
keep
from
something from that.
From an existential perspective, you've accepted the inevitability of death, and it hasn't delegitimized your need to still get shit done. It's
Yeah.
just a process for you. It's a cycle.
Yeah, it's just a process.
Cool.
Life is a process. Like, you go with it.
Creating different narratives, having impacts on future generations. What narratives, particularly, I know you talked about your social location at the beginning. What narratives are you trying to create that in the community that you're coming from aren't currently there, and how do you plan to disrupt the status quo?
Yeah. One of the major things that we're looking at is, number one, mythology. I think there's so much material in mythology that hasn't been relooked or reanalyzed.
Right.
In particular, the fact that there's pretty much only one really strong female goddess in all of Hindu mythology. That's Durga.
Yes.
The other goddesses are a lot more passive and a lot, they have their own attributes, but in the male side of the perspective, there's all these strong, powerful warrior men, and not necessarily the same type of strength and power in the females that we
Why do you
have.
think that is? Is that just because of general patriarchy?
I think that it's from developed patriarchy. I think that mythology has no, I know that mythology is has evolved over time with things that were happening in history. So mythology changed a lot when the British invaded India. And that changed a lot of not even, you know, the political stories, but even how women were depicted from a beauty standpoint, like our skin color and all of that everything within the core of mythology was also shifting as the times were shifting. And so I think that mythology is not necessarily just this historical thing that we have to look at from an objective perspective, but something that we can keep with us if we modify it, and if we change the focus and we point out what was wrong and what we don't like. Times. If we can make it evolve, but that has to be an active effort. And that's something that I don't see happening. And that's what created a lot of the dissonance that I had with Bharatanatyam growing up, that I was like, often I just happened to move more masculine, like as a dancer. And so that was interesting being in Bharatanatyam, because like I was given all these like male roles to play. And so when I was given someone like Parvati or someone more like soft and feminine, I was like told that I like wasn't good enough. And that I wasn't feminine enough. You
were told this by like the coaches or by the
audience? Like my gurus and like people who were watching, like, you know, like people would make the observation. They could sense it that I wasn't like fitting in with the like characters that I should have been playing at the time. And so that's like one of the real reasons of like why I was like so like it didn't just speak to me, like I wasn't being myself, right? And so even like stories of like Krishna, right? Like he's a guy who really gets away with a lot in terms of what he does to women and how he treats them. That's so just, and they don't show that in the movies with nobody talks about nobody. And people are starting to notice now, but it's like still he's so revered. But everything that he does, I feel like a lot of those stories have also integrated into society and how men treat women in society, because those are the role models and those are, you know, the idols that we look at. So that's kind of like one aspect. And then the other aspect is more of talking about our human experiences of like, what is my experience just as who I am? What are things that I come across and what are experiences that I have and how do I talk about those in the open? And so dance has become kind of my dialogue of speaking from my history of not being able to communicate my thoughts, even like with my parents. And in general, I just had a hard time talking about what was going on in my head. That was like, dance ended up being the art form where I could talk about those things. And so I think that in terms of like changing the patriarchy and all of that, I think I don't look at it as I'm actively trying to break the rules or I'm actively trying to say something. I kind of have become a little bit more introspective, like what do I want to say? And it happens to say those things. And so it's not like I'm trying to create this like politically driven message for like this audience member to like love and like rave over, which I think is also another thing that some people are doing these days, because it's like women empowerment is like is a fire word these days, and so like people are throwing it around left and right. But these happen to be things that I just inherently care about because they're experiences that I have. They end up also being about women empowerment. They also be about like changing the patriarchy, and they also happen to be about like environmental issues and political issues. But it comes down to just like, what do I find interesting and what do I want to talk about? And so that's happens to resonate with people, and that's really cool.
So I'm guessing you're not a fan of our current president.
Yeah, you've inferred correctly. Yeah.
I'm not
good deduction, friend. Good deduction.
So there's not an inherently political message to what you're doing, but coming from your social location, coming from your introspection, it breeds like that because that's just based on your experience.
From the things that I've just been going through.
Yeah. Is there sort of like a deep need for you to not necessarily change, but really make a difference for when you're 40 and 50 and when there's young Indian girls, right, or young South Asian girls who want to do something creative or want to express themselves in a way that is different from the norm? Is that a motivation for you, thinking about the future and you being a role model? Are you thinking that far down the line?
I think that it's already started happening slowly. Like I already get, little girls who like have seen a performance and they are really moved by it. And so slowly kind of having that impact already, I think I'm like, it's going to happen if I can get my voice out there right now.
Absolutely.
So right now the hustle is kind of like making sure that I get up there. Like right now our goal is, as being urban Indian, right, we're trying to really tap into the Western dance kind of high class sphere.
Yes.
Where like ballet and like contemporary are super revered, because that's like a true status of, you know, like urban Indian is like another type of ballet. Like it's that powerful and it's that technical. So I know, because I know everything that we do has depth to it. Everything that we do has something to say. And so I know that if people see it, they'll get it.
Right.
So right now it's like a matter of getting people to see it.
So for you, it's really not if, it's just when. It's just constantly putting it out there and seeing what happens.
So I know that if I can get it out there, that will happen. Like I know that I'll be able to have that impact. And then that'll be like, that's the whole mortality thing of like, then I know that I'll be able to impact future generations who can look at this stuff and learn something from it and take it, and I feel like more like embody it and make it their own. That's really what already I really enjoy doing with my dancers, who are there's Asians, there's whites, there's like all these different races that we have. And you know, going along to all of my work is based in my experiences. And even though I'm like particularly like a South Asian female, like everybody from their different perspectives are able to relate to something that I'm saying and what my experiences are. And they're able to take it and they make it their own, whether it's like the white guy or it's like, the Asian girl or whatever. Like everyone comes from culture and everyone comes from a background where life wasn't easy and they often didn't have their voices heard. So everyone's able to take something out of it and make it their own. And that's why even, being a dance form that's not rooted in their own culture, they're able to find something in that. And that's a really cool thing, because another one of my passions, I think, is being able to take this art form and transcend global borders, and be able to not just speak to other South Asian females, but be able to also really connect with anyone and be able to pass on what I have to say to anybody at all. Right. And that's, I feel like, where you could really kind of immortalize
I was
yourself,
literally, I was literally about to say, like, that's how you reach immortality. And she's like, that's where you literally immortalize. I'm like, wow.
You got the right girl for this podcast.
Took the words out of my mouth. How did it feel when you got that girl that you were talking about who said, oh my God, this moved me? Like, how did you feel when you got that message from her?
I think it's more like surprise, because again, I stopped thinking about consciously trying to like impress people or trying to make things that were going to please people and be what they like, right? So when I put anything on stage, this is so cheesy, but it's really like putting a piece of your soul on stage, because you kind of like, you didn't make it for anyone else other than yourself. Yeah. Right? So I think it always takes me from surprise when anyone is like, moved at all. But for girls in particular, it's like, I was you. Like I was you a couple years ago. And so that's really, like, I wonder what I would have done if I had, seen someone like me at my age. Right. When I was like 5 or something. And so, yeah, it's just like a really cool feeling. Right. Because you kind of just see yourself in that person. And so it's like, that's beautiful. I wonder what you're going to turn out to be. Oh, I hope you, take something. Like, I hope this stays with you. You know, like, I hope you can keep this with you. It's not just like a fleeting memory. But like, I have these like twin nieces who are like 5. And I just spent some time with them in California, so I don't see them very often. And so they saw one of my videos, Ursula, on YouTube, and literally every single day they watched it like 20 times. Oh my God. And they were like, that's so beautiful. They were like, Didi, like, can you play Ursula? Can you watch it again? And I was like, oh my God, yes, you can.
Did you dance with them when you were in California?
Yes, I ended up teaching them a dance, because like, in my childhood, so my uncle was a huge part of me starting to dance. Like when I was like 2 years old, like I would copy his dance videos off the TV, like with like, like when I was supposed to eat, I'd be like copying his dances, and like everyone was like really annoyed with me all the time. But that was like, he was like a huge inspiration for me. So I kind of want to be able to be that figure for other people.
Yeah.
Because he had a huge impact on me. And he's still like, you see him in my work. Like he had such a deep influence. And so if I can do anything to be like a fraction of what he was to me, to someone else, like then I know that
Then you think you've been
regardless of what this, fucking career shit goes, then at least you've really had an impact on someone.
Right.
No matter like how small or big.
Right.
Yeah.
So beautiful, but I have to be awkward.
Oh.
Okay, we're good. The idea of getting it out there and knowing that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, getting it out there requires a little bit of the use of the technology that we have available to us, social media. So I want to get your thoughts on that. What are your perspectives on effectively creating essentially like a marketing campaign, right? To get image out there and potentially get new opportunities from being out into the interwebs.
Yo, I'm getting mad help on this right now because I suck.
Really?
I just like am not adept at technology, and so I'm like trying to figure out how it is to do that. Like I'm not a person who's like really good at social media, and I'm like kind of figuring this out because I have to. Like if I didn't have this whole like dance business stuff going on, I like would not really be on social media. Like I have
Really?
to. Yeah, like I like am just not the type of like if I didn't have to have a phone, like I wouldn't. Like, I think it's really annoying.
So you weren't the type to obsess over likes or anything when you were in
God,
undergrad?
no. It was like a headache. Like I like was like I'm sick of having this to
Interesting.
worry about. I just wanted to like play in the grass and stuff.
A chemist who told her parents she wasn't going to be a doctor who didn't care about Instagram.
Yeah,
That's
isn't
very
that the crazy
interesting.
thing? Aren't all chemists obsessed with technology?
That's true. That's true. So how are you doing with marketing right now?
Yeah, so I'm like, I've consulted a lot of people who are good at technology and who are good at social media.
Right.
So I'm like honestly working on this. I'm not so good at it. And kind of like just a year ago, after like the 2 years that I started Urban Indian Image, only a year ago I started our whole like Facebook page and our Instagram pages and stuff like that. But my focus in general is like the problem that I'm having is the fact that in dance and especially in the like South Asian diaspora, like Bollywood is so suffocating and it's like everywhere. And so on social media, it's what is hard that I'm trying to work around is getting across the depth of what we're trying to do, because otherwise on the face front, it looks like Bollywood fusion.
Absolutely.
Which is exactly what it is not.
Right.
And so my issue with like posting a lot of like videos and stuff on the internet is that it kind of reinforces like what people want to see in the first minute of just like quick satisfaction.
Right.
And so, but I know, but like factually, social media is such a great tool to get across. Like,
Right, that's what I was going to
do.
ask. Philosophically, even though you haven't been attached to it your whole life, do you agree that it is the way?
Absolutely.
To get your shit out
I'm like actively trying to figure out what's the best way
there? Right.
of how to use it, because my thing is right now we do have like content on YouTube, and but that content is specifically made for the internet a lot of the times of like I wouldn't put that on stage, but like stage is where my passion is.
Right.
Or like film is what my passion is, not necessarily like the short YouTube videos.
Yes.
And so like there's a couple videos that I've made because I had to. And I wish I didn't have to, but like I had to for like whatever political or like because it was like a good marketing thing to do. Obviously, it's still my choreography, and so like it still has like the depth and stuff. But was it the first thing that I wanted to do? Like no.
But you got to do some shit that you don't like.
But
to
some
do when
things,
you're
yeah,
part
you
of it.
and so but the thing is like still with doing that, there's like this compromise of like, do I want just people to see me at all versus like do I want people to understand? And so. At the end of the day, I don't know if there's a difference if you just really need follows to legitimize yourself at the same time.
Is it not possible to do your stage performance and just record that and put it on YouTube?
Well, then what's the point of going and seeing a show?
Interesting. I would think people would, if you get a massive following, they would buy the tickets to see the show.
Not if you put the whole thing on YouTube though.
Yeah.
And so the thing is like the way that our stage pieces work is that like you can't really like putting just like a minute up is like there's like a whole like larger story and stuff
Right.
like that. It's like hard to kind of like package it the right way for people to understand like what
Whereas
it
if you make
is.
a video native to YouTube, then it's easier.
Yeah, and also like then there's this whole thing of like stage pieces sometimes like you have to still design it for the internet because
Right.
there's this idea if you have 1 minute you have to make an impact or you
Yes.
have to like pack it in a certain way,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
Whereas like what I in my heart prefer is someone like watch for like an hour and like learn a whole thing as opposed to just like in a minute get a little like satisfaction and move on. So yeah, this is like balance of like trying to figure out. So like for Instagram, I'm doing this thing kind of like where I post more just like class footage of like classes that I teach, which is
Yes.
already not very often, but
Right.
that's already kind of designed for like a minute length because like classes you can't usually teach more than a minute of choreography.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, something like that's one of the most popular ways for people to get views and stuff these days is like putting like class footage up.
How do you feel about creating a personal brand around who you are and like vlogging and shit and like so people know what your days look like, and then creating an attention based off of putting so much content out there about who you are that they're like,
Yeah.
oh, and she owns a dance business,
Yeah.
and then they check it out, and then you sort of pipe. I don't know what's the right word, but
Yeah,
get
like
the
pipeline
followers.
it down.
Right.
I'm actually looking into doing more of that. Kind of like figuring out like how to do it. I think
Right.
I might just have to start.
Yeah.
That's one of the.
I mean, I've been trying to do that too. It's hard.
Yeah. So like for example, like we're fun fact about updates on current image activities is that we just got last minute booked for the Seattle
Wow.
International Dance Festival, which is like huge.
Where
for
is
us.
that?
Seattle.
Oh, so you guys are flying out.
Yeah, they're flying us out.
Wow. Catching
and so-
flights, not feelings out here.
But like that's like I didn't think that something like that would happen for like another 2 years. Like that's like
Wow.
way above our and that's the reason why it happened was because like I had a good friend who was performing and had a time slot, and they ended up not getting their visas from India. And so he recommended that we take that slot even though I'm 23 and I'm quite young to be taking a slot like that. And so
And this is at a school, a show, like what
this
exactly
is a huge like
festival?
dance festival, international dance festival.
Wow.
So they're flying other people from out of the country, other dance companies, like full on. So we're kind of a little bit out of our league right now. But yeah. So like that, I just got that call last Tuesday.
And that's gonna happen in the summer.
That's gonna happen in 2.5 weeks.
Oh my god.
June 22nd.
Are you nervous?
Or June
Are there
21st.
butterflies? Or like...
I'm just like work mode right now. But
Yeah.
like one of the things that we're trying to do is like this is like a crazy kind of thing for us is to be able to maybe document some of this behind the scenes process of putting
Yeah.
together like a 30-minute show in 3
I would watch that
weeks.
shit. Yeah.
So yeah, we're working on like getting some footage filmed and then like looking to put that out because yeah, the work and like the thought that goes during the whole process to get something from scratch to on stage and then how the dancers experiences
Sorry.
are. Don't worry about it. How the dancers experiences are. Also training because like for them they have to learn a shit ton of like Indian classical technique. Like
And how many people are there that are going to
so
Seattle?
for this particular one, I'm only bringing 2 other girls.
It's gonna be a 3-person.
So it's like a
performance.
trio, whole shebang, which is also like you can't hide behind anyone. You have to like be
Yeah.
the best,
Yeah.
especially like a platform like this. So like one of my dancers like had like 3 ginormous like blisters on her feet like yesterday.
Because you guys have been working day in and
It's
day
been
out.
like a huge, and that's like also tying back to the social media thing. It's like I'm so focused on creating that I forget sometimes that I have to also show people
Document
what we're
what you're
doing and
creating.
document it. Like that's
Right.
not like an instinct for me. My thing is always like I have to just first like get my shit done
Get your
first.
craft perfected.
So one of the things, like I think I have to like probably hire someone to like help with the social media stuff because it's like a lot of brains to have in one person
Yeah.
to like be able to focus on everything. But it's so important. I wish it wasn't, but it is.
Right.
It's like a learning process to figure out how to go about it though.
Our moments in terms of people who do on stage shit, because for me, like public speaking, I get gigs and like go and perform and shit. The stage itself, right? Like for me, my speeches are probably like 20 to 45 minutes. Those minutes are everything.
Yeah.
There is no like after, before. It's like those minutes and the chance you have to impact an audience is what's going to make or break your evening. I've had speeches where I've gotten a standing ovation, but I didn't feel like it was good enough. Maybe I'm too self-critical, but I went home and I didn't feel the best.
Yeah,
I've had speeches where I did feel good and I was able to sleep good at that night. Like, as people who are embracing that stage in that moment is your happiness. How do you feel about embracing that, and how do you go from, all right, preparation to the stage, and then maybe something doesn't go well, or maybe it was amazing? Like, what is your thoughts and opinions on the stage being the basis for ultimately your happiness?
Yeah. I think, I mean, every performance that I've ever had, I wasn't ever 100% happy. Like, there's always something could have gone better.
Absolutely
right?
feel that,
like,
yeah.
there's never a perfect, it just never happens. Like,
even if everyone tells you it's amazing,
and
you don't feel that.
And the thing is, like, I know that other people are never the judges exactly of like what your vision is, but then it's also like, I know that for me and what I do, I'm never gonna exactly get what I want.
Right.
That almost, I have learned to accept that, and that you can only strive for the best,
right,
as close to it as you can, but like every single performance, it's a different temperature, it's a different stage, it's, different people have different sicknesses going on that day.
Right.
Your brain is in a certain place, so every single time you perform, there's like all these different things that you have to combat, and it's different every single time you do it. So no performance is ever going to be exactly the same, no matter how much you practice. And so it's kind of like, that's also the beauty of stage, though, because it's like this one moment where like anything can happen, and it only is that one time. And that's kind of the thrill, though, of like, I'm here right now, and like these people are watching at this one time, and it's never going to be exactly how it is tomorrow.
And would you say that lights your soul on fire?
That's like the best feeling ever. That's why I love live performances, because you get an instant reaction from people. And I think that's why, because you know that you're never going to exactly like get that vision or anything that you want. It's not always about that. I think for me, it's about that instant energy that you have with people. And so whether or not your art form is like at the peakest thing, that you want it to be, I think learning to accept that if you have at least moved people, then usually that's a huge goal checked off the list. And then obviously you know what you have to work on for the next time.
Talk to me about embracing the journey and not the destination. As you said, it's obviously not possible to have that perfect destination, that perfect performance, but these next 2 weeks that are going to be hell for you, the beauty in it is that it is hell for you.
Yeah. I think that like for this, like, let's say particular scenario, I know that there's probably not another way that I would have gotten this opportunity. Like if I had applied for this, I would have gotten denied. I only have this because this person backed out last minute, and because these last minute things happen. So I was never going to have more time. So I have to make it work in this like hell short period of time. And and so that's because this is the only way that this could have happened. Like I have to embrace this to the maximum that I can, because otherwise the other alternative is not having it at all. So then what are you going to do? Like if you have an opportunity, and even if it's like, man, you have like a 10% chance of it going really well, sometimes you just have to like, you just have
especially
to
if you know you left it all out on the floor, right? Like if these 2 weeks you were fucking around watching Netflix, you wouldn't be able to live with yourself if the performance was trash.
And so like I'm like so terrified, but also so excited at the same time, because now this is also a huge opportunity for like a completely new audience of like a higher platform to be able to see what we do. So
and just having that on your resume in
it's
the
like,
first 2
I
years
can
of your
just
company.
say, I can just say that, and people will be like, wow.
What's the name of the festival, by the way?
Seattle International Dance Festival.
Okay.
I haven't even announced it on social media because like we're still signing contracts. So you are the first to publicly know.
Wow.
Just kidding. You're probably watching this in like
fucking September.
Okay, hopefully. Okay. Shout out to future Ishita. Like, good job. I'm sure you did great. That's it. That's for me.
I hope you did good.
I hope you killed it. Okay. That's just.
I know you killed it. Future. Are you getting paid for this or?
Yeah.
Wow.
You
are a company. Like, this is just service you're offering, right? It's your performance.
and it's like So it's like our performances that we're trying to do are not like, let's say like wedding gigs, right? Like we're trying to do more like events,
really
like
professionalized
dance,
events.
like dance, like art, like gallery, like as if like if you're gonna do like a gallery for like paintings, like we're trying to like be like
Right.
like Broadway, like
Right.
off Broadway shows and stuff like that. So yeah, so they have to like, at least basically for this show, we're just about having all of our costs covered because we have to kind of like last minute invest a lot and
Right.
like getting new costumes
Right.
and like everything. So we're not getting a lot in terms of like, I'm not hugely profiting off of this, but at least all expenses are covered, and that's huge for dance production, and especially at the like place that we are right now. Again,
Right.
like I didn't think that I would have gotten something like this. Like
The experience isn't going to be anything.
yeah, this is like really crazy. So yeah, but it's a lot of pressure, but like it's also a huge thrill.
Yeah.
It's like so exciting. And this is like, I really like, as a person, I just like live off of high pressure situations.
Yep.
Like I'm so good at high pressure. Like
Kobe in the fourth.
hell yeah. Yeah, so I think that like
Nah, you're going to come in clutch. You're going to get this.
oh, thank you.
I think it's going to be good.
Thank you. I have a good, even though it's like high pressure, I do have a good feeling. So but yeah, like I really like these high pressure situations. You just have to like make it work, and you just have to like
Have to figure it
have
out.
to
I think those are the
figure it
three
out.
greatest words. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Like when I told myself to just figure it out, I just fucking figured it out.
you just fucking do it.
Right.
And it's just like when you just realize that you just have to figure it out, like it's possible, you just haven't figured it out yet.
Right.
Like when you just realize that, then like it's in front of you, you just have to find it.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Okay, so we're wrapping up on the end of the podcast. Last question is,
Yeah.
what is the future for IMGE? And I know you just explained the 2-week future is this big ass festival, but largely, I guess 5-10 years from now, where do you see the purpose of this company being? And is there something meaningful in that purpose that will extend beyond the next couple of decades, that will make it survive as a company?
So basically what I want to do is really, again, I think I alluded to this earlier, is to really have the chance to expand our work so that we can take deeper dives into the conversations that we have. I feel like there's a lot more to pull out with more time.
Right.
So hopefully in like 5 to 10 years, we can have an actual show running that we can be able to tour, and we can get grants and we can get funding to have a whole show that explores like a whole conversation or topic that I want to talk about.
Right.
And be able to like, take that to different countries. And I think that really the long-term goal is really to have Urban Indian as an established dance form of
Yes.
something that other people can partake in and understand and know the roots of it. Again, like going back to that other conversation of like this Bollywood fusion and all this stuff is like a huge, net of like nonsense. But to like really have a dance form that's rooted in a lot of history and technique and purpose, and be able to start changing, I think, what Indian culture is capable of doing. I feel like we have all this untapped potential that people haven't really realized how to use yet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And making that more visible. So not only just creating a cool dance form that's like really never has been the goal, but really to put this on a pedestal of showing, not only what our culture has, but what it can say to other cultures.
Right.
And what purpose it has in the broader spectrum of, what we have to say and why other people should care.
Right.
So in terms of longevity, I think basically I my heart is in being a choreographer. So, I don't necessarily want to be like a dancer. I want to be able to create.
Right.
And so also
Architect
being
stuff.
yeah, like so it's like the conversation of like, it's like being an actor versus being a film director.
Yeah.
So I really want to be like the film director. I really want to
Right.
be able to create. So aside from just image material, I'd also want to be able to seep into film and be able to choreograph in like larger, commercial works as well.
Right.
And so being able to take Urban Indian as this language and being able to kind of seep into different platforms and different
mediums. Right.
and different mediums, so that it kind of, again, for our whole message can really transcend boundaries and borders and be able to speak to anyone.
I love this idea, and I love the company because just the way you described it, urban Indian as a message to transcend borders. I think, if you put in the hard work, that's what's going to keep the company running for the next couple of years. And I think the impact of it being that you create sort of a new dance form is amazing. And I think that's going to take like decades to get to, but I think the process of getting to that is going to be the most fun part.
Yeah, it's definitely because it doesn't necessarily like exist exactly right now. And like also like contemporary Indian is something that like people are developing, but like for everyone across the board who are trying to really do anything that's like taking Indian arts and creating something new out of it, it's like because it doesn't exist, there are no opportunities.
Right.
So you have to like slowly
Gotta
carve them out. And so yeah, this is like a decades process, but like you kind of see a sliver of like what that could possibly do and what the possible.
And that's enough of the motivation.
That's like enough. That's enough. Like it could, and even if it like does a fraction, that's still gonna be cool too.
Right.
So that's where I am right now.
Okay. Well, that is our podcast. Now, there's one last thing you have to do.
Oh, cool.
You have to sign this poster, make it as original as you want, as big as you want.
Oh god.
So now we can say Ishita motivated by mortality.
Okay. I'm gonna just do Ishita because if I do the image logo,
You could try.
no way, dude.
Okay. Okay, we're done. We're out.